Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the February 27th, 2024 New Bern Board of Aldermen meeting. Prayer tonight will be coordinated by Alderman Kinsey.
Tonight, I have Pastor Moore. He's going to open prayer up for us tonight. Sir, would you come to the podium, please?
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Let's look to our Father. God of all creations, Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight. We come humbly as we know how, and we come honestly, Father. We ask that your Spirit will be released in this place. Lord, that you would give wisdom to the aldermen, the mayor, those involved in this alderman meeting. We pray for your wisdom that we may develop strategies for victory in every area of discussion. We give you thanks and we give you praise for what you have done in this city, what you're doing, and what you will continue to do as we submit to you in your guidance, Father.
Yes.
Now have your way in this place. Be glorified, be high and lifted up. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen. If you're able to stand, please do so as we pledge allegiance to the flag of our country. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, if you would, please call the roll.
Alderman Creel.
Here.
Alderman Royal. Here. Alderman Astor.
Here.
Mayor Odham.
Here.
Alderman Kinsey.
Here.
Alderman Best.
Present.
Alderman Brinson.
Here.
Board, before we move to item number 3, I'll take a moment of personal privilege. City Manager, you had something you wanted to discuss?
Yes, sir. I'd like to know if no objections, if we could ask Sheriff Hughes to come up and talk a little bit about what happened yesterday.
Glad to have you here, Sheriff. Come on up.
Good evening, Mayor, Alderman, City Manager, Assistant City Manager. I wanted to come here tonight, one, just to express my sincere gratitude and thanks to the New Bern Police Department, their leadership, their special response team, and their negotiators. We had a situation on 17 North right outside of Vanceboro yesterday that lasted just about all day. And it could have been, the outcome could have been terrible. Fortunately, the outcome was peaceful. We brought the resolution in a very peaceful manner. But had it not been for the close working relationship of your police department and my office, we would not have been able to do that. Your chief sent the resources that I needed out there to help me bring this situation to peaceful resolution in the form of negotiators, vehicles, and manpower. And for that, I'm extremely grateful. But it goes further than that. That's just an example that happened yesterday. We work together every day, and we spend a lot of time in the city of New Bern. And as many of you have heard me say, you know, if it's the chief's problem, it's mine as well, because the people that live inside the city of New Bern also pay county taxes and deserve additional protection from my office, just like they do your police department. So, one, I just wanted to make sure everybody heard that from me, that the working relationship we have, multifaceted, is producing outstanding results. New Bern and Craven County is definitely a safer place because of our working relationship. And as the chief and I have both said, whatever resource I have or he has is each other's. And that shows day in and day out. And just yesterday was a perfect example of how we come together and work. And I hope this spreads throughout city and county government as well. So I just want to thank y'all and thank the chief as well for his outstanding leadership and sharing his resources with me.
Sheriff, thank you for that working relationship. Just as you mentioned, this is just one example. I called you a couple weeks ago about a situation at my son's school. Obviously, I live in the city limits. His school is not in the city limits, but you answer the call, and we all work together very well. And I commend both your office and the department for doing so.
Well, I'll tell you, it's better, and I've been here a long time. The way these office and department works together now is better than I've ever seen it. And I appreciate y'all supporting the chief and my office as well.
Thank you.
Board have questions for the sheriff while he's here?
No.
Take advantage of it.
Just a big thank you.
Hey,
Thank you.
Sheriff,
Thank y'all very much. Yes,
I
sir.
appreciate your kindness and helping me in some of the things that I have ran into last year, and I appreciate your office assisting and continue to do that. If it's anything that this board can do continuously to build the relationship stronger, that we are there to do it.
Yeah. Once again, we're in very trying times, and this is where society has brought us. So, your support through your police department, which in essence supports my office, because we operate as one team, and that's the way it's got to be. But thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Sheriff.
Thank you.
Okay, board, next item is to approve the agenda. Are there any changes that would like to be made?
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to make a change. Under the consent agenda, item number 4, I would like to have it tabled, please. I know there's further discussion, a lot of discussion is needed because of that particular piece of property. So if the board would agree along with me, I would appreciate it.
We just want to put an indefinite time on that until we get some clarity around some other items before we put it back on an agenda. Is that good with you?
Yeah, that's why I wanted it tabled, because at
Okay.
this present time, I don't have a specific time frame.
Okay. I have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a second, and that motion is to pull item number 4 from the consent agenda. Any further discussion?
Can we put just a time limit on that so that it does come back to us at least at some point in the future for
Well-
further review?
Well, at this point, I can't say, I don't have a specific time period that I even know how long the discussions is going to take on this. So that's why I wanted it tabled instead of postponed.
Mayor, and I could also just make a comment, if the board would like to just vote to just pull the property from the surplus list for the time being, we can do that, because we do have someone that has placed a deposit on the property, and if at such time that we need to put that property back on there, we can start the process back over at that time.
Alderman Prill, did that satisfy your question?
Well, yeah, and again, I know what property it is, and I understand the rationale for maybe holding off on it. I guess my questioning is that we seem to have gained some momentum over this past year of selling a lot of surplus lots and seeing a number of those being utilized with new housing on it. I'd like to see that momentum continue. I realize this is only one property. I would just feel more comfortable, if we put a 4-month, 6-month time period on it. I would think that's a good period of time for further review and discussion to take place. And if it's not, then it comes back to us and we can hold it for a longer period if necessary.
So the motion that's on the table has been seconded is to table it indefinitely until the board brings it back up. I guess at any point in time, Ms. Attorney, a board member under new business could ask for this item to be put back on the agenda?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Hearing no further discussion, I'll have a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, item number 4 has been pulled. So now we just have the minutes under the consent agenda. What's the pleasure of the board on item number 5?
May I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as is?
Second.
Approve the agenda. Approve the agenda.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I'm sorry. You threw me off. I need a second on that one.
I did.
Alderman Kinsey second. So all those in favor say aye. Aye. So the agenda has been approved with item number 4 being tabled. So now we're looking at item number 5 is to approve the minutes, which is the only thing remaining on the consent agenda. It's the pleasure of the board on item number 5.
Approve the item number 5 as is.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's have a roll call starting with Alderman Priel.
Alderman Priel,
Yes.
Alderman Royal,
Yes.
Alderman Astor,
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey,
Yes.
Alderman Best,
Yes.
Alderman Brinson,
Yes.
Mayor Odom.
Yes, motion carries. Item number 6 is presentation by Code Wright planners on land use ordinance development process. Mr. Hughes.
We're happy to have Chad Meadows with Code Wright talk us through the process, so we'll turn it over to Chad now.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Mayor, Alderman, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. I am Chad Meadows. I'm principal of Code Wright Planners, and it's been my pleasure to be in your lovely city for the last couple of days. Tonight, I'd just like to take maybe 5 or 10 minutes of your time and tell you a little bit about this project. I'll tell you about the team, some of the project objectives, the scope for the project, our schedule, and where we go from here. This is the project team. Chad Meadows, that's me. I'm the project manager. I'm principal of Code Wright Planners. We're out of Durham, North Carolina. I have been a professional planner for about 32 years, and this is the 29th development code that I've been involved in my career. So I'm joined by several other planning practitioners. Courtney Tanner is also involved on the project. She has been a planner for 20 years, serves as a planning director in a triangle in a community in the Triangle. We're also joined by some folks from the McAdams Company. Hunter Freeman is a stormwater expert on green stormwater infrastructure here in the state of North Carolina. He will be involved in sustainability and stormwater provisions. We are also joined by Eddie Moore of McAdams, who will be assisting us with testing. We'll be testing these development provisions as we move through the project. Finally, we're also suggesting changes to your zoning map, and we'll be joined by Kimberly Whaley of Tidewater Associates, who will be doing our remapping. So what is going on with this project? Well, the city has a land use ordinance in place that is been around for many, many years. It's been updated in a patchwork fashion, and your land use ordinance basically controls where things can be built, the process that will follow, and how they're operated. Now, part of the land use ordinance is a zoning map, and so this project is proposed to bring your ordinance into modern times, and we've got a series of objectives here on the screen: sustainable development strategies, integrating more sustainable kinds of features, green stormwater infrastructure, tree protection, etc. Bringing the regulations into the modern age in terms of graphic communication strategies. So think about more summary tables, more illustrations, more graphics, more details on how to use the code. Community connection strategies, dealing with roadway connections, sidewalk connections, utility connections, and making sure that we're making better use, more efficient use of the land that already exists inside the corporate limits. Addressing housing, more housing choices in more locations, and that includes, to the extent that we can address workforce housing, doing that, hopefully in a more successful way. So bringing some more options for housing for the people who live here in New Bern. Those are some of the objectives, and we will amend this list. It will evolve as we move through the process. So let me tell you a little bit more about the process here. This is the work program that we're suggesting. It's about a 24-month process, so we would expect to have this new LUO in place by January of 2026, okay? We are anticipating 12 tasks in this work program and a total of 13 trips to the community by myself and consulting team members. The city has formed a steering committee to direct us as we move through the process, and we'll meet with that committee 7 times as we go through these various steps. There are also a variety of public forums incorporated in this. We'll be doing 4 public forums at key steps in the process. Some of these public forums will be open houses that we're basically available and on hand all day and into the evening for people to come at their convenience and talk with us about their concerns. We've also integrated a variety of other approaches into the project. For instance, a web page. The consulting team will be developing a web page that we will manage throughout the project that will have information on draft work products, how to participate the next time we're in town, FAQs about the LUO itself, the zoning map, etc. So lots of information for members of the public, lay people to learn and get involved with this to the extent that they'd like to do that. We'll also be incorporating some office hours in our trips. So each time we're here in the city, we will make 4 or 5 hours available to meet with anybody who'd like to talk to us. And that would include a presentation or a one-on-one conversation, whatever, what have you. We're available, and we've kind of built these time slots into our process to make ourselves available for anybody who wants to find out more or has questions. So this is our draft work program. This is a system that we have built over the many codes that we've worked on through the years. I'll note for you that we've incorporated a testing component where we're working with members of the development community to field test the draft regulations before we go through the adoption process, hoping to find any fatal flaws that are in the draft regulation and correct those before we move through into adoption. We're anticipating preparation of a procedures manual for you. That's a companion document to the LUO. It has the new application forms, new submittal requirements, resources for applicants, again, trying to make this easy for people to follow the rules. We've got a series of training modules incorporated into this so that we can come to the city and help people understand how the new regulations work. That might be members of the development community. It might be appointed board members, staff, whomever, members of the public. So a lot of different opportunities for people to be involved, a lot of opportunities for people to learn, and a lot of opportunities for us to come up with a set of development regulations that are going to work for you. We have been in New Bern for the last couple of days here on Task 1, Project Initiation. We've had an opportunity to talk with your staff, talk with your attorneys, talk with many of your major developers, talk with staff members who are outside of the Development Services Department. And we are now collecting information to come back and share some details with you. Our schedule will be on the webpage. I realize this is hard to see on your screen. Again, 24 months, 12 tasks. This information is available in the Planning Department and will be on the project webpage, so there's more details for you about our intentions and where we expect to go with this. We hope to be here in front of you guys 4 or 5 times throughout this process at key stages, including, hopefully, adoption of the ordinance sometime in October of 2025. Next steps. Our next step is the preparation of a code assessment. Think about it as a blueprint for the new UDO. It will explore the difference or the gap between your current policy guidance as reflected in your CAMA plan and your current regulations. Your CAMA plan says where we want to be. Your current regulations reflect where you are today. There's a gap between those two, and this code assessment will analyze that gap and tell us what areas need to be addressed so that we can get where we want to go, as we've explained in our land use plan. In addition, a series of key themes for improvement. There's typically 6 or 7 sets of recommendations, things that we would suggest be done to make your development regulations more efficient, more effective. So things like illustrations, things like clearer procedures, well-documented review criteria, just trying to bring your regulations into the modern age and addressing some of the problems that we've had in the past. Issues with on-street parking, some of the confusion over the various overlays that are out there. How do we address, roadway connections and some of the challenges that you guys have experienced recently in some of the rezoning cases, and how do we address that and make rezoning cases easier on you, easier for people to understand, and easier for the neighbors to accept. So those kinds of changes are the things that we're looking to make and kind of the improvements. This code assessment will set down some of those key themes. When we come back, and we expect to do this sometime in June, I think for your first meeting in June is our hope to be back before you. We'll have our first public forum and our first round of office hours to overview this code assessment document, and then come back to you on June 11th and overview this code assessment. So that is a very fast run-through of the project and where we'd like to go and what we'd like to do. It is our hope that when we come back to see you again in June, that we have an opportunity to go over this code assessment with you and share some of our thoughts about how best to improve your regulations. And I am very happy to try to answer any questions that you guys have.
Board have questions?
You made mention of your timeline. Is it correct that you said 24 months, October 2025?
Absolutely 24 months, and I would expect that we would hope to wrap this project up at the end of December 2025, and probably going to be January of 2026, but our hope is, shortly after the end of 2025.
And is that timeline inclusive of the work you've already done?
This timeline does reflect some of the work that we've already done. We started on this project last month, so our work is just underway now. This was our first trip to New Bern. We have reviewed your plans. We've reviewed your current LUO and have summary tables that we'll be posting on the webpage that give you some insight into the areas that we'd like to move forward in. But we're still very new in the process. We're just getting started. We're just at the very early stages. But yes, this schedule does include that time.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Alderman Kinsey?
So you have quite a long process of cleaning up, bringing us up to the standards that we should be. And I appreciate that. That's something that we have been waiting for a long time. And thanks to the new director, that she's taken us to the next level. And thank you. What is this process about, 2 years?
About 2 years. It'll take us about 24 months.
Well, thank you so very much. Waiting to see what everything's going to be about. And we can be very, very excited.
Indeed, thank you. We're excited too. It's going to be a great project.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Alderman Crew?
Mr. Melvers, you mentioned that you will be coming back before this board 3 or 4 times during that 24-month time frame.
Yes, sir.
Will you be identifying recommendations each time that you come back to us of work that you have done, and I have identified recommended changes to the land use ordinance?
Mm-hmm.
Will you be communicating those recommendations and fully explaining all of that to us as you move forward and each time you come back before us?
Probably in more detail than you'd like, but yes, absolutely. We will be back before you with detailed explanations of recommendations for the code assessment. We will be back before you to explain the annotated outline, or the quote-unquote dress rehearsal for that new LUO, detailing for you the areas of change, why, if there are pros and cons associated with those changes. There may be some decision points along the way that we want to check in with you guys on. That's absolutely typical, and we would expect to do that. We will be before you for the initial version of the LUO. We'll be before you for the revised version of the LUO, and then we'll be before you for the adoption process.
Well, and I appreciate all that. That, to me, is a very good approach, rather than waiting until the end and then coming back and expecting the board to absorb a rather voluminous document of changes. If we can get it piecemeal, I think it'll be easier for the board to understand the process, understand the changes, and it'll be easier then to ultimately make the approval, of the ordinance.
Indeed. And we do it. We will endeavor to spoon feed you just the right amount each time we go through, not more than you need, but just the right amount. This stuff is not the most entertaining material in the universe, and we understand that. So we'll package this up and prepare it for you in ways that deal with executive summaries and gets you directly to the decision points where we need some assistance, and then we'll be available to answer questions questions if you guys have, if you wish to dig down into the details. I'll also mention, anytime any one of you would like to have a discussion with us, we will make ourselves available for that. And certainly, on these office hours, when we're here in town, if anyone has a desire to sit down and ask specific questions, we're available for that as well. So we very much understand the importance of two-way communication with you, the need for trust, and that you guys are comfortable that what's being prepared is actually, in your best interest and good for the city and in accordance with what we're all looking for.
Okay. And I know our Development Services Director has mentioned to us on a few different occasions that there's a number of changes that she's looking to see made. So I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you will be working hand in hand with the director and her staff to address those concerns.
Absolutely. Think of us as an extension of your staff. They're very, very busy. And have day-to-day operations to deal with. It's our job to come in and supplement and aid them so that we can prepare this information with them on their behalf for you and your citizens to consider. So, yes, we will be working hand in hand with Development Services staff for the next 2 years, the whole way through the process.
Yeah, and lastly, how about, how will you be working with the Planning and Zoning Commission?
Great question.
Because I know that our chairman is here tonight. I've had an opportunity to talk to him and another member of the Planning and Zoning Commission. And I know that they have a desire to do some deeper dives into certain areas of the land use ordinance. I think signage being one, parking regulations throughout the entire community being another, and there are probably others as well. So
where do they fit?
Assuming that they get, or they move forward, taking a closer look at specific areas that they would like to see changes, how will you work
How do they
with
dovetail?
that body?
Right, indeed. And so certainly, we've got the Planning and Zoning Board chair as a member of our steering committee. Our steering committee is sort of our sounding board and will be our initial body that we share our draft work products with and get their first blush reaction. So it's our hope that the Planning Board chair will feed back information to the Planning and Zoning Board members about the process. So that's one. Two is, again, I keep talking about these visits to the town. These are multi-day trips that we make down to New Bern. We have plenty of opportunity if individual members of the P&Z board want to meet with us, or if we want to have a special meeting where we do a presentation to them about work product that we're working on. That's certainly an option too. We've left that aspect open. No matter what, the Planning and Zoning Board has a role in the adoption process. So no matter what, their sort of participation in consideration of this ordinance is mandated by state law, and they'll be involved in the adoption process. The extent to which they would like to be involved in the drafting process is totally up to them. We welcome their involvement at every step in the process and have built time in for us to be able to meet with them as they see fit.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you very much. I look forward to working with you guys in the coming days and weeks.
Same here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is number 7, a presentation by New Bern Baseball LLC on planned improvements to Kafer Park. Mr. Hughes.
So, Mayor, Alderman, representatives from New Bern Baseball were unable to attend for other reasons tonight, so I'm going to go over those proposed renovations that they want to do to the park, and you'll see a graphic on the screen where we can just go through this. So you'll see the yellow line around the perimeter of the park. They're requesting to take down that existing 4-foot fence and replace that with a 6-foot tall chain link fence. On the blue line that you see on the first and third base side, that is currently a 4-foot fence, and they're requesting to replace that with an 8-foot tall chain link fence that will help with the safety of the balls being hit outside of the park and things like that. The red area behind the home plate area, they are proposing to put a 3-foot tall fence, heavy gauge material, so they'll will be able to catch the ground balls that come into the home plate area, and then approximately 17 foot of netting above that. This is in line with the standards of what they're doing at some of their other fields. They're also planning on installing appropriate electrical to meet the needs of the dugouts and the announcer's booth. They're planning to rebuild the pitcher's mound and home plate area to college league standards, replace a portion of the outfield fence to extend outfield to the block wall, relocate the scoreboard and wiring on steel posts as needed, install brick chips on the warning track adjacent to the block wall, and they're planning to, Colleen, if you could switch this, they're also planning on rebuilding the dugouts. The current dugouts are made out of chain link fence with aluminum roof panels, and so this would be made out of framed wood construction. You'll see some examples of this on the screen. The first base dugout would be approximately 37 feet, 10 feet wide, and so a portion of that would be where they have the announcer's booth. The third base side would be 27 by 10, and of course that would, you see what that would look like on the lower picture. Of course, they have to get building permits from the Development Services Department to build those structures as well, and their goal is to start as soon as possible on this portion, and until we hear otherwise from the governing board, any other projects that they want to do, that will come back before the board for approval.
Board have questions?
Yes, this presentation says an example of a dugout. Is this actually
that is what it will look like? Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so it's not just an example. This is actually what they plan to do.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any more comments or questions? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Item number 8 is a presentation by Highway 1764 Association.
So we're happy to have Mark Finlayson here with the Highway 1764 Association to give an update on what they've been working on.
Thank you very much, Mayor, members of the board, Mr. Manager, thanks for having me. Always happy to be back here to speak to you, and I want to thank New Bern for all the support you've given the association over many years. And for those of you who have not yet heard the presentation, I know the mayor has, and Alderman Kinsey probably more times than they care to remember, I want to give you a little bit of background on who we are and what we have done. Highway 17 Association actually goes all the way back to 1975. That was when we were first incorporated. It was reinvigorated in 2006 as a permanent organization because regional leaders in the corridor felt like we weren't, or they weren't, accomplishing as much or making the kind of progress that they all wanted and expected in improving US 17. When we stood up the organization in 2006, we were given a 3-year commitment to see what kind of progress we could make with our advocacy. And we are now in our 18th year of operation. And you can see by the slide, with over $2 billion invested by the state in 19 major projects, about $750 million of which was unfunded, meaning it was outside the 10-year window of the long-range strategic plan that the state calls the STIP. We've obviously made a lot of progress. We added the US 64 corridor to the association in 2015 when Congress passed the FAST Act, which was at that time the Surface Transportation Act for the federal government. In that act, future Interstate 87 between Raleigh and Hampton Roads, Virginia, was authorized by the federal government. And so we wanted to make sure we were advocating for that interstate as well as for improvements to US 17 and US 64, basically from Raleigh to Manteo. For those who don't know, US 17 goes from South Carolina to Virginia in North Carolina. It actually begins in Virginia and ends south of Tampa in Florida. but there are 300 miles of US 17 in North Carolina through 13 counties, beginning in Brunswick County in the south and ending in Camden County in the north. And our mission has always been to improve US 17 to the fullest extent possible and to certainly get the 2-lane stretches of US 17 4-laned as soon as possible. So, before I talk about specific projects that I think should be important to New Bern, let me just say that any highway leading to New Bern is going to be important because it brings workers into the city that don't live in the city. It brings citizens here for health care, for education, for professional services, and for shopping. And it brings tourists. All of those things exceedingly important to the city of New Bern. And so to the extent that we have a highway system that's safe and efficient so that those people can get here and back, that's a benefit to all of us that live in the community. This particular example, the project that NCDOT calls R3403A, is actually a classic case study for the value that the association brings. This is the improvement from the existing 4-lane in Bridgeton at Antioch Road that goes up to Weyerhaeuser Road, or NC 43. This project several years ago fell off the STIP. It was dropped from the long-range plan because the state didn't have enough money to do it. So, in my role as the leader of the association, I was able to work with the General Assembly to find more money for transportation generally, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But when the General Assembly authorized significantly more funds for transportation, it enabled the DOT to go back and look again at some of these projects. And I was able then to work with NCDOT Division 2, which is us, and senior leadership in Raleigh to persuade them to add this project back to the STIP. It was one of among 50 or so that were added back with the extra funds out of significantly more than 100 that had been dropped. So that two-pronged approach of let's find more money, and once we've done that, let's dedicate it to our projects is a role that we play, and I think we play it very well. So now that this particular project, which is an $82 million project, is re-established on the STIP, it can be let with its companion project, which is R2513. And this goes from NC 43 up to Sproultown Road, which is about a mile and a half south of the Vanceboro bypass. So those two projects, which will be slightly over $100 million together, can be let at the same time and can be constructed as one project with right-of-way acquisition beginning in 2027 and construction beginning in 2029. And because those two dates are within 5 years of where we are today, that means these projects are deliverable or considered over 90% reliable by DOT to get done. Now, to extend this part of US 17 north from Sproultown Road is going to require more work and more effort on our part. Our task is to fund and program the remaining segments of US 17 between here and what I call the Washington-Chocowinity bypass in Beaufort County. You can see the 4 segments broken out and how much they should cost in today's dollars, which will probably shift because of inflation and other factors. But in total, just shy of $87 million for the remaining segments. We are going to work very hard in partnership with our MPOs and RPOs to get those projects prioritized for the next step. And that prioritization process, the SPOT process, is underway now. Once we get these programmed, that will represent the last 18 or so miles of US 17 to be 4-laned in North Carolina. So we will have gotten all 300 miles four-laned at that point. So very important and something that we're dedicated to. Although these aren't specifically our responsibility and our focus, we are interested in any highway projects that benefit the city and bring people here safely for many reasons, but primarily for commerce. So I'm following US 70, I-42 upgrades through James City, and also the NC 43 connector. Now, there are long-range projects that are aspirational right now, such as the northern New Bern bypass, which would go from 70 around up to NC 17 near West Craven. But that's a very expensive, very complicated project, unlikely to happen anytime soon. So let's use an example of how we get from New Bern to Greenville. There are three ways to do it. One is to go NC 43, very, very difficult road to build, sort of like the northern New Bern bypass, a lot of wetlands, a lot of complicated right-of-way. You could also go west on US 70 to Kinston and go up NC 11 to get to Greenville. But the most likely choice, and I think going to be the quickest and safest way to go, is north on US 17 to Washington and then west on US 264. So that's why it's going to be very important for us to get these last segments of US 17 in Craven County and Beaufort County finished sooner than later. Now, another important role I play besides the executive director of the 17 Association is that I am chairman of the board of NC Go, which is the statewide transportation advocacy coalition. And in that role, I'm at the table with NCDOT leadership and legislative leadership when decisions about transportation funding are made. And the way I see it, we really, as a state, need to build a 21st century transportation system to support the kind of growth that we're expecting over the next 10 or 20 years, where we're going to become the 7th largest state in the country. Right now, the system can't support the kind of increased traffic that we expect. And we also need to think about a way to replace our gasoline tax, which is our primary source of transportation funding, with something that is more sustainable over the long term. Because the gasoline tax, at the very least, is static and is likely to decline over time for several reasons, primarily because internal combustion cars are getting more and more miles per the gallon, and also the increase in electric vehicles and hybrids as a percentage of the overall fleet. These are some of the things that the General Assembly has done recently that I think are very important. They made the decision to transfer 6% of general sales tax revenue from the general fund to the transportation budget. It will be phased in over 3 years. It's in the second year now. And when that is fully enacted, I expect really the number to be closer to $750 million a year as opposed to the $600 that's on the slide. And that is a revenue source that's expected to grow over time. That 6% was based on approximately the amount of sales tax collected on automobile parts and labor. So that's how they came up with that number. The General Assembly also this year increased the annual registration fee for electric vehicles to $180 from $140, and imposed for the first time an annual registration fee on plug-in hybrid vehicles of $90. That doesn't bring in a whole lot of money, but it's symbolic, and it gives them a platform to consider what those right numbers in the future should be. They also enacted new transportation commerce taxes, which you can see there, 1.5% on hires of Uber and Lyft, for example, that, again, don't raise a lot of money right now, but set a precedent. And down at the bottom, some other things were considered. I'll focus on the mileage-based user fee for electric vehicles. That was a piece of legislation that was introduced by Representative Tyson, and I discussed it with him, and I think he's very visionary about that, but he's a little ahead of his time in terms of legislative appetite for something like that. But I think if we go to a MBUF, or mileage-based user fee, it will more accurately reflect on how we consume miles of road in North Carolina. And it may end up being more beneficial for EV owners as opposed to the $180 annual fee. We would have to impose the MBUF to see. But those things are going to continue to be on the table, and I'm going to continue to be very interested in what happens with things like that. So finally, these are our goals for this year and next. We're going to keep all the current projects on schedule and accelerate those where we can find the money and get them done. We're going to continue to seek the long-term sustainable funding for NCDOT and focus as much of that as we can on rural transportation needs, which serve Division 2 and actually all 4 of the divisions that we work with in eastern North Carolina. And again, replace the gas tax, which is unsustainable. And we're going to continue to work with our RPOs and MPOs in their evaluation and prioritization processes. And Mr. Prill and I were talking about this earlier. The RPOs and the MPOs serve a very important purpose, and you guys have a great MPO director in Deanna Trebill. I've worked with her before when she was in Onslow County, or Jacksonville. So you're very lucky to have her, and she's a great transportation planner. But once they have put their prioritization in place, their hands are tied. They can't advocate for their projects other than put them on the list and hope for the best. And our Division 2 people, led by Chief Division Engineer Jeremy Stroud, are great to work with, and they collaborate with the RPOs and the MPOs on the planning process. But they're not going to jump the chain of command to advocate for projects that they think are important to Division 2. Their hands are tied as well. They may not be able to go to Secretary Joey Hopkins or to Chief Operating Officer Chris Peoples, but I can. And that kind of relationship with senior leadership at DOT is very beneficial, I think, to projects important to us. I'm very excited that New Bern is going to be hosting the annual meeting of the North Carolina Association of MPOs in April, and I highly recommend that any of you who can attend some or all of those sessions do so, because it's really a great learning opportunity for things that NCDOT is doing and the way our planners work and operate. You're going to have senior leaders of DOT in town. I'm certainly looking forward to being there, and I'm happy that New Bern will be the host this year. So again, thank you for having me and giving me some of your time, and I'm happy to take questions should you have some.
Any questions? All right. Thank you, Mr. Finlayson.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Next up is item number 9, consider adopting a resolution approving a local wellhead protection plan. Jordan Hughes.
All right, good evening, Mayor, members of the board. The next agenda item is the adoption of a local wellhead protection plan for the New Bern water system. As you may be aware, the New Bern water system provides domestic water service to all of our citizens and businesses in New Bern, as well as surrounding communities like Trent Woods, the Rocky Run area, and some unincorporated areas to the west of town. In total, we've got about 20,000 water customers that we provide daily water service to. We are a groundwater system, meaning all of our water supply comes from deep aquifers, and we bring that up through wells. And what we want to do is make sure that we're checking all the boxes we can and taking all the precautions that we can to ensure that our source water, the water coming into those wells, is being protected to the fullest extent we can. So there's things that are required that the city do as part of our operational permits with the state. We do those on a daily basis, a weekly basis, but we want to take that a step further and make sure we've got a real good plan in place to identify any potential sources of contamination for our wells, as well as have a remediation plan in place in case we do identify some contamination in the future. So what we've done is work with the North Carolina Rural Water Association over the past 24 months to take a good look at the physical characteristics of all of our wells, identify wellhead protection areas for each well, go in those wellhead protection areas and actually survey the individual businesses, the homes, anything that we could identify that could be a potential contamination source in those areas. We've tried to identify, document, make sure we know those are potential sources for future contamination. All that rolls up into a very robust plan. I think the executive piece that I provided for you in summary is about 150 pages. When you put everything together with all the survey material and all the wellhead and hydrologic information, it's about 450 pages. So a lot of effort went into putting this plan together. And what we have is one document that will, like I say, identify all of those wellhead protection areas and give us a good way to formally monitor those areas moving forward and have everything in place in case we do identify something that doesn't look quite right in our well fit in the future. We know where to start looking. We know where we can try to identify those contamination sources and have a good remediation plan just to be one step ahead in case anything does pop up. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Jordan, the preparation of this plan, is that a state requirement that we have one?
No, sir, Alderman Prill. There are several things that we're required to do by permit, and we do those. This is taking one step further. Actually, adopting a formal plan is a voluntary program. It's encouraged by the state, but it's not required by permit.
Okay. And once, assuming that the board approves this, once it's in place, how often do you foresee that it needs to be updated?
So the plan itself really is a monitoring plan. So what this will do is give our cross-connection control coordinator kind of a guideline of how to monitor the areas within the plan. So it's kind of continually being updated as new things pop up and development continues to spur within the wellhead protection areas. There's mechanisms for going out and identifying new potential contamination sources, making sure everything's documented, making sure they're included in the plan. So it's kind of a living document once we adopt it.
And those future changes, I mean, do they all have to be brought back before the governing board for approval, or can that be done internally?
The adoption of the plan allows the cross-connection control coordinator to make those routine changes to the plan as things develop within the wellhead protection areas.
Okay, thank you.
Just one question, and you showed in there, brochures and education plan for the public that's within the wellhead protection area. What considerations have you taken in for the turnover of those folks there, and then particularly some of that area is going to be new development? Is that I assume it's ongoing, but what are the mechanisms you have?
Good question, Alderman. So one of the things we'll do once this is adopted and we can continue to progress with the program is we'll have a spot on our website that identifies the plan. There'll be some GIS type mapping that identifies the wellhead protection areas. Also, where we've identified the potential contamination sources within those wellhead protection areas. And we'll continually update those things as development progresses, especially towards the western part of town where most of our well field is at. We'll see that, that area develop. We'll make adjustments to that, and it'll all be kind of live in a GIS type map.
Okay.
Any more questions? It's the pleasure of the board on item number 9.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the adoption of a local wellhead protection plan.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's have a roll call starting with Alderman Royal.
Alderman Royal,
Yes.
Alderman Astor,
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey,
Yes.
Alderman Best,
Yes.
Alderman Brinson,
Yes.
Alderman Creel,
Yes.
Mayor Odom.
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you.
Jordan.
Thank you, Jordan. Okay, item number 10 is to consider adopting a resolution approving the Redevelopment Commission's sale of 209 Bryan Street with removal of deed restrictions. And I think this one's a little bit different than the next two, so we probably should take this one separate.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Mr. Huff? Or Mr. Hughes? All right.
We'll take it. So on September 26, 2023, the board adopted a resolution approving the Redevelopment Commission sale of this property in question with the condition that construction of a residential dwelling was to begin within 12 months of closing. The buyer's closing attorney discovered a defect in the title that occurred during the tax foreclosure process. For this reason, the closing has not yet transpired. Since the buyer's attorney is optimistic that he can resolve the title issue, the buyer would like to proceed with the purchase. However, this process will be costly and will take time. For that reason, it's requested that the sale be approved with the removal of the stipulation that construction begin within 12 months.
Board have questions?
When you say costly, now, this is gonna be the cost put back on the redevelopment commission or the buyer?
No, ma'am, that would be a cost borne by the buyer.
So basically, we're just being asked to remove the deed restrictions requiring them to start construction within 12 months because the process to close is taking longer.
Yes, sir.
And that extra cost is the burden of the buyer.
Correct.
Okay. Board have any questions on item number 10?
I'd like to make a motion to remove the time restrictions from 209 Bryan Street, PID 8-177-209.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's have a roll call starting with Alderman Astor.
Alderman Astor,
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey,
Yes.
Alderman Best,
Yes.
Alderman Brinson,
Yes.
Alderman Creel,
Yes.
Alderman Royal,
Yes.
Mayor Odom.
Yes, motion carries. Board, item number 11 and 12 are pretty much the same thing, just two different parcels, so if you wanted to consider those together, we can in the essence of time, and that is to consider adopting a resolution approving the Redevelopment Commission sale of 808 Bern Street, and item number 12 is for 810 Bern Street. Mr. Hughes.
So on the first property, an offer in the amount of $5,737.50 was submitted for the purchase of this vacant parcel. They proposed to combine it with the 810 Bern Street parcel. The offer on that property was also $5,737.50 for that parcel as well. The two lots will be combined to accommodate the construction of a single-family residence. The conveyance will be subject to a requirement for construction to begin within 12 months after the transfer.
Board have questions on item number 11 and 12?
Mayor, make a motion to include item number 11 and 12 to approve a resolution approving the Redevelopment Commission's sale of 808 Bern Street and 810 Bern Street.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's have a roll call starting with Alderman Kinsey.
Alderman Kinsey,
Yes.
Alderman Best,
Yes.
Alderman Brinson,
Yes.
Alderman Creel,
Yes.
Alderman Royal,
Yes.
Alderman Astor,
Yes.
Mayor Odom.
Yes, motion carries. Item number 13, consider adopting a resolution accepting funding from the FY 2023 Bureau of Justice Assistant Bulletproof Vest Program Grant. Chief Gallagher.
Thank you, Mayor. Before I start, Kim, is there a correction that needs to be made on this?
So, I know it says that you're accepting funding, but the description says desires to apply.
We wish to accept the funding. Okay. So I am happy to stand before you again this year, requesting that we are granted the ability to accept funding for a 50-50 match on the purchase of at least 15 bulletproof vests for our officers. If we do not have this grant, then I would be requesting full funding, taking advantage of the Department of Justice's assistant grants gives us the ability to essentially buy one, get one free type of situation. So this benefits us financially through the budgetary process, but also, and more importantly, provides the ballistic protection that our officers need. And I strongly recommend that you approve this application or this grant funding.
Board have questions?
So Chief, this is matching funds, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, it is. And we have already budgeted for it.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we consider funding from the Bureau of Justice Assistance Bulletproof Vest Program grant.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Chief, obviously, all of the officers have existing vests that they wear. How often do vests get updated, modernized?
They are on a
a
5-year rotation. However, I will say, thank you for bringing this up, the new vest that we are currently purchasing has given us the opportunity to provide added ballistic protection for all upcoming vests. So we are at no additional cost. So we are able to advance the ballistic protection based on upgrades in the technology of vests.
But still looking at probably like a 5-year rotation?
That's correct, yes.
For vests. Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. At this time, we'll have a roll call vote, starting with Alderman Best.
Alderman Best.
Yes.
Alderman Brinson.
Yes.
Alderman Creel.
Yes.
Alderman Royal.
Yes.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey.
Yes.
Mayor Odham.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you, Chief.
Before I leave, if I could make one quick comment, I would like to alert the board that we requested from the Craven County Crime Stoppers assistance in requesting a $1,000 reward for the arrest and conviction of the November 2nd, 2013 homicide investigation at 114 Trent Court, where one of our citizens was murdered. The board has approved that, so currently we'll be promoting the $1,000 reward for that particular homicide.
Is that November 23, Chief? 2023?
Yes, 2023, yes.
All right, good job.
Thank you. Okay, item number 14 is to consider adopting a resolution to accept ownership and maintenance of Bogue Lane and Rodanthe Drive in the Bell Oak subdivision. Mr. Childs.
Good evening, Mayor, Board. We were notified by the owners and developers of 2 sections of the Bell Oak subdivision that they have requested for the city to accept maintenance responsibilities and ownership. Our department has performed built standards inspections of these roads, and we recommend that these roads that are listed, Bogue and Rodanthe, be included in the city maintenance system.
Board have questions?
Can we do 14, 15 together?
Mrs. Attorney, 14, 15? Yes, we can do 14, 15 together. Mr. Childs, item number 15 is to consider adopting a resolution to accept ownership and maintenance of Alabaster Drive, Ecru Circle, Onyx Lane, Parchment Bluff, Spring Green Pass, and Verdant Ridge in the Carolina Colors development.
Very similar to the Bell Oak situation, we were contacted by the developers of the Verdant section of Carolina Colors requesting that we accept ownership and maintenance of these 6 streets. We have performed build standards inspections and are requesting that the board approve acceptance and ownership of these 6 roads.
Okay, any questions on 14 or 15?
All of these are city streets, correct?
They will be city streets if you pass taking them, yes, ma'am.
Okay. So right now they're in the county?
No, right now, they're
Okay.
within the city municipality, the
All right.
developer has constructed them. We don't accept them until they're constructed to a point that we recognize and they request us to accept those roads. And we did inspections during the construction and a post-inspection once they made the request to us.
Thank you.
And George, all improvements have been 100% complete? There's
Yes.
still nothing
Correct.
outstanding on any of these roadways,
Yes, sir.
correct?
It's a pleasure of the board on item 14 and 15.
Mayor, I'll make a move for the adoption of a resolution to accept ownership and maintenance of Bogue Lane and Rodance Drive in Bell Oak subdivision, and Alabaster Drive, Ecru Circle, Onyx Lane, Parchment Bluff, Spring Green Pass, and Verdant Ridge in Carolina colors.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's have a roll call, starting with Alderman Brinson.
Alderman Brinson,
Yes.
Alderman Creel,
Yes.
Alderman Royal,
Yes.
Alderman Astor,
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey, Alderman Best,
Yes.
Mayor Odom.
Yes, motion carries. Item number 16 is to consider adopting an ordinance to amend Chapter 70 of Traffic and Vehicles, Section 70-132, to amend the schedule of speed limits to add newly accepted streets. Mr. Childs.
Yes, this would just be to amend those sections to include these newly accepted roads.
Same thing with item number 17.
Yes, and that references the stop intersections.
Okay, so the board can consider items 16 and 17 together if you'd like.
If there are no questions, I'd like to make a motion to adopt an ordinance to amend Chapter 70, Traffic and Vehicles, Section 70-132, to amend the schedule of speed limits to add newly accepted streets, and to amend Chapter 70, Traffic and Vehicles, Section 70-99, stop intersections to add newly accepted streets.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's have a roll call, starting with Alderman Prill.
Alderman Creel,
Yes.
Alderman Royal,
Yes.
Alderman Astor,
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey, Alderman Best,
Yes.
Alderman Brinson,
Yes.
Mayor Odom.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you, George. Item number 18 is to consider adopting an ordinance to establish the 212 Kell Road Project Fund. Ms. Ostrom.
At the February 13th board meeting, the board approved the purchase of property located at 212 Kale Road. This ordinance establishes the project fund and the initial budget consisting of the property purchase in the amount of $1.4 million and estimated costs for building improvements in the amount of $600,000. The $2 million project will initially be funded by a transfer from the electric fund with the intent to be reimbursed from debt proceeds. It is requested that the board consider adopting this ordinance to establish the 212 Kale Road Project Fund.
Board have questions on item number 18?
May I make a motion to adopt an ordinance to establish the 212 Carroll Road Project Fund?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's have a roll call, starting with Alderman Royal.
Alderman Royal,
Yes.
Alderman Astor,
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey,
Yes.
Alderman Best,
Yes.
Alderman Brinson,
Yes.
Alderman Creel,
Yes.
Mayor Odom.
Yes, motion carries. Item number 19, consider adopting a resolution approving a declaration to intent to reimburse for the purchase of real property at 212 Kell Road. Ms. Ostrom.
In order to move forward with financing for the purchase of the property located at 212 Kill Road and the improvements of land and structures, a declaration of intent to reimburse the electric fund is required. The intent to reimburse indicates that debt issuance will not exceed $2 million. It is requested that the board consider adopting the resolution and declaration of official intent to reimburse.
Board have questions on item number 19?
If there's no questions, I'd like to make a motion to consider adopting a resolution approving a declaration of intent to reimburse for the purchase of 212 Kell Road property.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's have a roll call, starting with Alderman Astor.
Alderman Astor,
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey,
Yes.
Alderman Best,
Yes.
Alderman Brinson,
Yes.
Alderman Creel,
Yes.
Alderman Royal,
Yes.
Mayor Odom.
Yes, motion carries. Just for clarification, on my agenda, item number 20 is there, but it's blank. Is that correct?
No, budget ordinance.
Mine has something in it.
I'm looking at the summary. So item number 20,
It's a budget ordinance amendment.
yeah, that's what I show as number 21. So my agenda is shifted to one, so that's fine. So item number 20 is to consider adopting a budget ordinance amendment for FY 23-24. Ms. Ostrom.
The police department is trending to be over budget due to increased demands for security at various board meetings and special events, and increased costs involved in violent crime investigations, along with increased demands for direct patrols at Lossing Creek Park and Union Point Park. Therefore, this budget amendment amends the general fund to appropriate $80,000 from the general fund balance for additional overtime costs. The Employees Benefit Insurance Fund is amended to appropriate $19,500 from fund balance for retiree health insurance premiums for additional retirees, and $245,000 for increased stop-loss insurance costs due to premium plan increases that were effective January 1st. The Grants Fund is amended to acknowledge the Bureau of Justice Assistance Bulletproof Vest Partnership Grant, which was accepted on agenda item number 13, in the amount of $10,488.19. It is requested that the board considers adopting this amendment to the fiscal year 2023-24 operating budget.
Does the board have questions?
Mayor, make a motion to adopt a budget ordinance amendment for fiscal year 2023-24.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I'll just make a comment. I know that it's a small portion of that, Chief, but I received multiple comments from citizens thanking us for the increased police presence at Lossing Creek Park, and the efforts we've made there seems to have cut down on some of the activity that is not very becoming of our city. So thank you for that. So have a motion and a second on item number 20. We'll do a roll call starting with Alderman Kinsey.
Alderman Kinsey,
Yes.
Alderman Best,
Yes.
Alderman Brinson,
Yes.
Alderman Creel,
Yes.
Alderman Royal,
Yes.
Alderman Astor,
Yes.
Mayor Odom.
Yes, the motion carries. Okay, I do not show any appointments. Did I miss one for anyone? Okay, we'll move on to the attorney's report.
Nothing tonight, sir.
City manager's report.
I'd just like to revisit the item that was pulled from the consent agenda tonight. Since we don't know how long this may be tabled, we do want to give the applicant, BCK Development, an opportunity, if they want to withdraw their application, to refund that deposit. We typically don't do that. They may just want to keep that deposit in pending the duration, but we would like to give them that opportunity in case they'd like to withdraw and like to get direction on that.
So you would be seeking a motion to refund the deposit for the offer? If they request it?
If requested by them, yes. We'd like to have that option for them.
Okay. Does the board
So
understand?
moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
That's all I have tonight, sir.
All right. New business, Alderman Prill.
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Alderman Royal.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. I have had the opportunity to speak with residents at different times, and our citizens who, as I always advocate, every voice has value, to make sure that they have an opportunity to speak at various meetings. And I have heard the voice of the residents. Sometimes they're disappointed that they are not offered that opportunity. And in light of that, because every voice has value and every person should be able to have input, I would like to put forth a motion tonight to amend the resolution of creating advisory boards and commissions, that it reflect that all advisory boards and commissions include public comment.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor.
Second?
I have a second. Discussion?
Do they not already?
I'm not sure if I understand.
The motion is to give citizens an opportunity at various meetings, whether advisory boards or commissions, that they will have an opportunity to have a voice, to have input in whatever the agenda is in the meeting. Not all boards have that opportunity. Not, as a matter of fact, I think it's very few that allow public input in the various meetings.
If an advisory board that's appointed by the city of New Bern wants to have a discussion with this board, it only takes 2 aldermen to have it put on the agenda, correct? Or not?
Not a discussion with this board at the various advisory meetings or various commission meetings, not with the Board of Aldermen, but at their meetings.
They don't have an opportunity to discuss things at their meetings?
Some do not, no, sir.
Mr. Hughes?
So for some clarification, there's currently no requirement for any of the advisory boards to have a public comment period. The only board that is required is the governing board, which is required once a month. Some of the commissions, they have public comment periods as part of public hearings and things like that, but the advisory boards do not have a requirement. Now, some of them do have public input on their agendas. An example, the Bike and Pedestrian Plan Committee, they have a line item for public comment during their meetings. Some of the others do not. And so I think what Alderman Royal is referring to is she would, and I don't want to speak for you, but I want to make sure I understand this, she would like to see that each of the advisory committees have that listed in their agendas for each regular meeting or
Yes,
public
sir.
comment option.
Yes, sir. To give the citizens a chance to engage and to respond to whatever the agenda is in the various meetings.
And what you might do, since these advisory committees are created by resolution, is you might direct staff to bring a resolution back to you all for your consideration at your next regular meeting. That way, we can have it styled up so that you know exactly what it is that we're voting on.
That's a good idea.
That's good.
I have a question. So obviously, once a month, we're required by statute to have a petition of citizens, and we have a set of rules and procedures that govern that item. Is that what you would have for this advisory committee? Or, and for example, Stanley White Recreation Center Advisory Committee, if they have a meeting and there's a group of individuals from Greenville that want to see something happen there, and they want to come and they each want to talk for 10 minutes and there's 10 of them, is that going to be allowable, or are there going to be rules that set forth that you have to have some standing or you have to have a time limit? How would that look in this?
The advisory committees themselves can establish their rules of procedures. So, for example, they can impose time limits. They can ask people who are of a similar cost to appoint a spokesperson, the same general types of rules that you have.
Okay.
Question.
Yes, sir.
So you're saying that can happen?
Yes, sir.
So they just have to come up with what they want?
Correct. And
Okay.
that will be narrowly tailored to whatever instance they're experiencing.
So the public would have an opportunity to speak. It just have to be written up.
If you all are inclined to give us direction to produce a resolution for your consideration, adopting the sentiment that Alderman Royal is expressing, then that will be a mandate for all of the advisory boards to have a public comment period. How they administer that public comment period will be up to their discretion.
Okay.
That sounds good.
Okay.
We have a motion.
We have a motion and a second.
You want to withdraw it?
No. Well, I would just like to give direction to come up with the resolution and bring it back to the board.
Okay. So that would be withdrawing the motion and the second and giving staff direction to bring the resolution at the next meeting.
I withdraw the motion then.
Alderman Best, are you good with that?
Yes, I rescind.
Okay. Now you want to make a new motion, Alderman Royal?
And, okay, what does it need to consist of? Let's get some.
You can give direction to the city attorney's office to prepare a resolution for the next regular scheduled meeting, so that advisory boards and commissions of the city of New Bern are required to have a public comment period.
That is my motion.
That is your direction.
That is my direction.
That's the direction you're proposing, and
So
we just need to get
who
some-
is,
Do we need a second or something? Is
let's
that a
do
motion?
this. Who's opposed to that?
I have my direction.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Is that all, Alderman Royal?
Oh, yes, sir. That
Okay.
would be it. Thank you, sir.
Alderman Astor, it's good to see you. Do you have anything tonight, sir?
I do. I wanted to ask Charlie before he left, but he snuck out. The water line that was bored through the other day, was that another MetroNet issue?
It was a contractor. There are several contractors doing things. I don't have my public works director here. I don't want to say who it was.
I mean,
I
they've
don't
got
know
all
for
their
a fact, but
they've
we
got all
have-
their equipment and stuff out there.
Right. It very well could have been, and we've got several contractors that have been in the city that have hit a variety of lines through this new
Sure.
infrastructure installation process.
Well, Taberna has really taken a major hit with MetroNet and its contractors. I've received complaints constantly about them tearing up the sudden link or bright speeds, fiber optic lines. People have been down without internet service for 5 days, 4 or 5 days, sometimes longer. You know, they hit the primary out there and knocked the electric out in the front. They're tearing the yards up, and yes, they're coming back and they're doing some fixing. But the thing that I don't understand is a great big junction box, Foster, and I bet you the thing is 4 foot wide and 4 foot deep. And instead of putting them on the property line, sometimes they're putting them right in the middle of their yards. Now, they're recessed, but you still got this great big old plate sitting out there in the middle of your side yard or your front yard. Now, I was just wondering if there's any way possible that we can put these people on notice. And then, let me just say this too, and on top of all that, MetroNet has decided that they weren't going to service Taberna. They just passed all through Taberna, tore everybody's yard up, tore everybody's water lines up, electric up, cables up, and then decided, well, we're not even going to do services in Taberna.
So I'll have a conversation with the government affairs manager. We normally talk on a monthly basis, and this is the first I've heard about the issues at Taberna, so I'll get with staff as well about that, and we'll get back in touch with you.
Oh, it's been terrible. I mean, I've been working with Public Works with it as much as I can, and they've done a wonderful job, and they're behind them, and they are staying right on top of them. But it's some of the sloppiest work I've ever seen before in my life. Why can't they make these junctions on the property line where some of the other, junction boxes are located, instead of right in the middle of somebody's yard?
Yeah, it should be within the right of way, but we'll check
Oh, it's
with them.
definitely in the right of way, no doubt about it. We've already argued that point. And some of that right of way is from the grass side of the curb up like 25 feet up in their yard.
That's correct, yes.
And some of the yards aren't but 40 feet deep, so, it's a mess. They're in the right of way. They've made sure of that, but they have just made a mess out there. And then, again, what makes it worse is that they're not even going to service us.
We'll have a conversation with them.
Thank you very much.
I've received some of those same complaints, and I also want to be clear that the lady that reached out to me said, why did the city pay MetroNet millions of dollars to come here to provide service? I want to make that very clear, that the city didn't pay MetroNet anything. And legally, by right, they have the ability to put their utilities down in the right of way, regardless of whether we want them or not. So just a little bit of clarification with that. But it does seem like that they could make some adjustments on the box location.
Some of the things on Taberna Circle, there's a lady that since November has had probably 150 flags down the side of her house. And I'm not kidding you. Ride by and look at it. It's ridiculous. And they're not even going to put any cable on that side of the road. I say, well, I can't tell you what to do, but I know what would happen if they had them in my house, my yard. They're not even going to run cable down there. But it's terrible workmanship and customer service.
Thank you,
already.
Bryan. Thank you for bringing that up, and we'll.
Thank you,
we'll
Foster. I'm
address
sure
it.
you will.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
Anything else, Alderman Astor?
No, sir. Thank you. We have praised God for the $4 million that we spent for an elevator. I would not have been able to get up here because of an injury. I would not have been able to get up here if it hadn't been for the elevator.
All right. Alderman Kinsey.
Nothing tonight, sir.
Alderman Best.
Yes, I wanted to thank George and his staff, but he's already gone, most will do. Every time I call George, and I'm quite sure other aldermen as well, and you have a problem or concern or whatever within your ward, he and his staff, they're there to assist us, and I just want to thank him and his staff. And then also, I know we work a lot with NCDOT. I just want to commend their staff. There's Mr. Allison and Mr. Jarman. I had some issues in Ward 5 with some ditches and drainage areas, and they have come out there and they are doing a tremendous job making those improvements for our citizens. And I know that is a state-maintained highway. The city doesn't really maintain that highway, but I just want to say thank you to NCDOT. That's it.
Alderman Kinsey, you forget something?
Oh, yes, I did. I thank Mr. Finlayson for coming tonight, but I feel that we're pretty much in place with the MPO to cover all our needs with the legislature. And I think that I'm pretty happy with the MPO, what they're doing now. So I don't think we have to reach out any further. That is my opinion on
Okay.
that.
All right, Alderman Brinson.
The only thing I would say is to remind folks that primary voting is going on through Saturday. They'll be open Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, 8 a.m. to 7:30 p.m., and Saturday, 8 to 3 at the 4 early voting sites in the county. And then on March 5th, Tuesday, all 21 precincts will be open from 06:30 to 7:30 p.m., so please go vote.
Okay. Do we need a closed session?
Not tonight, Mayor.
All right. Anything else come before the board? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned.